Hi, my name's Thomas Clark, and my game's going to be called Limen, which is the Latin word for liminal, because my game is about liminal spaces. Hope you enjoy. About my game is going to be like different smaller levels. Each level is going to be a different theme of liminal space, like a mall or like a flooded subway or like a hotel corridor. I'll get as many levels as I can, but I would rather get them more detailed rather than the quantity of them. Like, yeah, have more detailed ones rather than like more less detailed ones. At the end of each level, there's going to be like a goal that you're going to have to get to that will, or maybe like a portal that will take you to the next level. I might add kind of a monster as such, or like something that might be like lurking around some corners, or as you go through one of these things, it might be behind you for like a split second just to keep you on edge a bit. That's only if I've got the time to. Yeah, I know the whole thing seems a bit simple, but I really think I can like achieve something that I'll be proud of. The genre on my game is horror survival, only survival if I had a monster, and obviously a walking simulator. It's just going to be on PC, and I don't know how long it will take to beat, depending on how long it takes for each level to like design and how long they're going to be. But like, I guess I'll just make it as long as I can, really. Yeah. The visual look of my game is just going to be all around just eerie, basically. Below are some like photos of places that look familiar, but you've never really been there. Also, that's the wrong slide, my mistake. About my game, sorry. The visual look of my game will be eerie, like almost like washed out colors, as you can see from like the images below. If I have the time, I'll add like a visual effect of like an old 80s camera, kind of like a old home video with like the tearing in the video and like maybe the static. I want the player to not be able to sprint, so you can't. If you see one of these monsters, you might not be able to like run away. And this will also make the game a bit longer. The reason I picked liminal spaces is because they've always interested me, and it's how like just an abandoned place can look so simple, but it could be so like uneasy and unsettling. I want the player to go around the corner, like I said before, like, and there'd be like a monster for like a split second, and then it will go like back behind the wall. I put there keeping them on their toes. Yeah, just keeping the player on edge, really. And here's some images of liminal spaces, but they've been at the bottom of every slide. But so like examples would be like the corridors that are there, and like I don't really know why, but there's like flooded places. That seems to be quite popular, and I really like that idea of like the flooded. Like, I guess it's like a subway or like entrance to like a pool, maybe. I find those, it just looks quite intriguing. I'd like to be able to do that in my game, maybe like adding some sound for like the water as well. And the end one, I guess, is like maybe an old people's home, which is quite eerie in itself, or like maybe another hotel one, but just like places that look quite simple, but just give like an unsettling feeling. Yeah, a bit more about liminal spaces. They look familiar, but you've never been there. They all look a bit like you don't know what's going to be around the next corner. Like I said there as well, feeling like someone is following you or chasing you. The main ones are really like a shopping mall or like a shopping centre, a school or like a pool being like empty or abandoned, like the people have just disappeared. Yeah. Video, I just skipped through it. This is one about the back rooms, which is a liminal space. It's gonna work. Come on. Yeah, so it's just someone, they've got this like style of this 80s kind of video going across. I like that. Oh, there was like something behind him. That's kind of thing I want to achieve. Yeah, next slide. Is a mind map. So for my mind map, it's quite simple, but so are liminal spaces. For the architecture, I want like plain washed out colors, long corridors like the hotel one, big open spaces like the mall or the school. For the horror part, I want the feeling of it being uneasy, but maybe not jump scares, but kind of like the feeling like you're being followed. The dark lighting, definitely, like lighting is going to be such a big part of it, like broken lights, flickering lights and dim lights. So it's all just that uneasy, eerie feel. Yeah. For research, there wasn't many games that I could really look at. It was mainly just images that people, I guess, have found or made, or places that look like liminal spaces. But I found a game called Animorapolis. It's kind of like what I am going to be doing, where you kind of just walk around these liminal spaces, and this didn't like intrigue me to do it. I found this when I already had the plan. But below are all screenshots from the game. Yeah, and another game I found was Stanley Parable. It's a game where you have to follow what the narrator is saying, but throughout the game you can go against him, and it gets really like odd because obviously you're pushing against how the story should be being told. But aside from the story, the environment all seems a bit like from the images I've showed before. These screenshots below are all from Stanley Parable, and they all seem like they would like completely be in that theme of liminal spaces, because it's all about you work in an office and the people that you're working with have just vanished and you don't know what's happened to them. So, and also in liminal spaces, they look like the people have vanished or it's been abandoned. But the game progressively gets more interesting and strange and mind-boggling. Yeah, it's really good. For the audience, like the target audience, I think horror game players, although it's not going to have many jump scares, it'll put people on like the edge. The age range, I think, is probably going to be like teenagers and adults. I don't think for the horror side is going to be for younger like players. And at the same time, walking simulators, I don't know if that would be as intriguing to like a younger audience. I think they might want to play something more, I don't know, action rather than just walking about. Yeah, so I think teenagers and adults are going to be the main target to like follow the story, I guess. So I made a simple backrooms, which was the video that we watched earlier. I made it in Blender and in Unreal, just to test out some lighting, test some materials, and I also tested a cinematic camera, which I followed a video for. Here's the video for it. It's very simple, it's only 6 seconds long. But it's the first time I used a cinematic camera in Unreal. I just followed a short tutorial, but now I know definitely for the future that I'll be able to like do that again because it was quite simple. But testing like lighting and stuff, as you can see from the image on the right, which is just a screenshot from Unreal, it's definitely got that dim, eerie feeling, and that's with like no detail at all. If I was to when I actually make a proper room or liminal space, then it's going to have a lot more detail, and it's not going to look as flat, and I'll do more work on the textures and stuff. Yeah, I'm going to use Blender for 3D modeling, Unreal Engine to actually like put the models into like a game engine and like build the game, YouTube and Google for tutorials on how to do like bits and bobs, textures.com or something similar to get like my textures from, Soundly and YouTube for sound effects. Soundly is just like a free bit of software which is really good for sound effects. You can just drag and drop loads and they're all free one. You can get a premium version, but and then Photoshop for any custom textures or anything that I want to like make myself. I'll be using Photoshop to do that. That's it. Is there any questions?
Okay, thank you very much, Tom. That was really good. I think I've got a good sense of like exactly what you're setting out to do. Could you just give me a definition of what a liminal space is then?
So I got it on a slide before, I think. Or was it on my website?
think it's on your website. I think we skimmed
yeah,
that bit.
yeah, it was on my website, but it's like a place that is like that looks familiar, and like your brain feels like you might have been there before, but in reality, obviously, you haven't. So people get like an eerie feeling from it, or like a unsettling feeling from it.
Okay.
Because it's a bit creepy.
So yeah, that would make it then like a good match for the, as you say, the horror kind of outcome that you're going for. Yeah, cool. A couple of technical questions then. I think, like, firstly, I think the demo that you provided is brilliant because it shows the viability of the fact that you've demonstrated that you can achieve that look, and it is very similar to what you set out to do, or what you showed in a lot of the example imagery. So that kind of is effective as a tool to demonstrate that you can do this.
Yeah.
A couple of things that I generally want to talk about. So if we think of, like, have you looked at other examples of walking sims in general, and like?
Yeah, I haven't got any on my PowerPoint, but I've got some on my website. We looked at a game called Firewatch, which is it's very atmospheric.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely gonna have, I don't know what kind of sound effects at the moment, but like just eerie sound effects in the back, like humming, definitely, of like, I don't know, just static, and other bits and bobs.
I think, what do you see as any sort of potential issues around the idea of doing liminal spaces?
I can see how it might seem a bit basic. Obviously, like the images I provided and stuff, I can see how it might seem a bit like simple. Like I was explaining it, they all look a bit simple.
Yeah.
But the middle one with like the handrails and like all the tiles on the wall and the water would be quite difficult, I think.
Yeah.
And getting the lighting right as well. I think I'm going to be able to do some good work on it. I'm going to put in my all.
I think that's the thing. I think, like, you touched on it there, which is the fact that normally these games are sort of very asset rich as an experience.
Definitely.
What you're doing is stripping away to create this sort of generic space.
Yeah.
But so what you've got to be very careful with is that it's got to create that atmosphere that you're after. So you've got to really get that sense of foreboding, that kind of that darker sense through the lighting and the detailing, basically.
Yeah, definitely.
So where you take things away, like you are when you're not having, all the things that you like. If you look at this hotel sort of image on the right or the left, the idea that that to create that sort of shining style, and that would be a good point of reference as well. The horror film The Shining, if you've not seen that. That
came up in like images and stuff. I like carpet, which is really noticeable.
Yeah, and I think that kind of that's where your research should focus on trying to establish and find those spaces, like you say, that feel like you've been there before through the fact that they're just so generic, so kind of like readily available. And like the one on the right looks like where the old one looks like say the Shining corridor. The one on the left right hand side looks like a modern sort of hotel. That's, again, they're very generic, very sort of featureless.
Definitely.
So yeah, it's the lighting is vital. I think if you that's where the time needs to be spent, or more time, if you like, because you're saving time effectively from the modeling process. But which again is your strength. So but then I think, like, this challenge will be nice to focus on the lighting and things. And you talked about it, but you're going to be using Unreal Engine, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And then Blender for the models, yeah.
Yeah, and do you think you will be trying to build in some audio as well?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know, maybe not like a soundtrack, but like I want it to be quite quiet, but at the same time I don't want it to be like not pitch quiet, but like dead quiet. I want there to be some ambience, like a buzzing, or like I want to say a car passing, but not a car passing, but like that kind of background.
Yeah.
Those kind of background sounds.
There's that kind of, just like you say, kind of non-diegetic sounds that are just influencing or infiltrating the space that you're seeing.
And then if I have one of these like monsters like peer around the corner or something, then definitely having like a startling noise that would happen.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think when you're talking about that, are you talking about them implementing a 3D rigged character, or do you see it as like a shadow, or just a kind of? I think
it all depends on time, really. Because I mean, if I've got, like you said, I'm not doing a lot of modeling, well, as much as I could be doing.
Yeah.
So I think if I have enough time, then I would like model it and like rig it up. But that's if I've got the time. If not, then I'd go for like a simple approach. Maybe I don't really want to say PNG, but maybe something similar.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That could work.
Because I want it to be far away. Like it's not going to be like exactly up in your face. It's going to be like down the hallway, or like on the one on the left, it could just like walk across the hallway when you're like far away from it. Just
right at the distance. Yeah, so
yeah,
it's
definitely.
a subtlety. Yeah, okay. I think in which case, again, like you've mentioned a couple of examples of products that you've looked at, like particularly games, with Stanley Parable being a key one, and I understand that, and I think you can see the links to what you're trying to do with that. So it would definitely be worthwhile if you haven't got like an in-depth analysis of that game.
Yeah.
And that Animorapolis, or however you say, I don't know, but
Yeah,
that again had that right sort of feel.
Yeah.
Have you, I think, other titles for you to look at and to examine in more detail that would be relevant for yours is PT. For again the horror and that sort of revolving corridor. Although there's more objects in PT, it's still very sort of generic corridor spaces.
Definitely.
I think again from a lighting and a general sort of horror point of view, although it's a different perspective of game and kind of different outcome, to look at Little Nightmares.
No, yeah, that's really
just because of the lighting and the color tone, especially for example, like the example of this orangey lit scene on the right, and even the blue sort of corridor hall in the middle, those sorts of feelings.
No, definitely.
From there would be a good one. So you've heard of those titles, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, of course.
Worth looking at in more detail. I think that would be fine. What about the implementation of water? Is that something you feel you've done or could do?
I haven't done it before, but I've used the water texture before, so I think yeah, I don't think that'll be too difficult. Yeah.
No, I think getting to grips with little tests in Unreal sooner rather than later is important. It's, obviously, you want to continue the research, and that will go alongside it. And what you did was perfect with the example demo that you looked at a little tutorial and then implemented that and showed that off. I think more little samples like that before you begin to start to really sort of tie it down to the level design and everything else. I think it's important that you go back a step and just sort of do some other small tests. We know that you can model, but it's the lighting and the sort of sound and like the water in that case would be a good one to mock up.
Yeah.
Do you plan? How many sort of zones did you say you were going to try?
Well, I said maybe like 3 or 4 because I want them to be like detailed. Because obviously, like you said, there's not going to be many assets in each one, so I want them to be like the bits that I can detail. I want them to look good.
Yeah.
So as many as I can get done. Yeah. So I don't really know at the moment. Once I find out how long one would take, I assume I could go off that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the other thing to be mindful of is that they're distinctly different in style. Some of these examples that you've shown, so it's how you tie that into the context of space that makes sense to a player.
Yeah.
Rather than just unless you do it really deliberately, where it's like somehow it's a space that's got all sorts of weird, different types of places coming off of it. But if you have, for example, a setting that's a building that would naturally have these different types of things, let's say like an abandoned hotel, that would have an old gym, that would have a kitchen, I don't know, or some sort of generic sort of kitchen that would have then lots of endless corridors. Do you know what I mean? I think it needs that context applied to it a little bit, because otherwise it's just a series of very separate spaces. So I think that's part of your job as well, is to kind of make sure that it feels like it contextually works for the player. So yeah, I don't know. Again, have you got any thoughts on that? I mean, I said a hotel, but have you got any other?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I was originally going to go off like they're going to be just completely separate. Like you would start in one of them, and then you would get to this. I don't know what it is yet, but to this thing that will take you to the next one, and then it's just like, I don't know. They might be able to get more creepier as it goes on, and then obviously at the end there might be something that happens. But yeah I want to get like testing and then just testing things.
You can do that. I think that's fine. Again, you have to think about how you justify it. It's how you go about doing that. Like for me, I don't know, as a contextual thing, it would make sense that you were on different levels, and you like your goal was to get to the stairs, or like you're gradually descending. So maybe that you start off in a hotel
Yeah,
horror
that would make
corridors.
sense. How you would have like the end of the level would be like a staircase.
Yeah, with the one with water in, say, or something like that. So
Yeah.
even the stairwell could be very sort of liminal in that it's a generic sort of spiral. If you think about places, and that was my other suggestion for you, is to go to places that have this feel, this sort of wherever you can think of that has this feeling in real life, to get some primary research.
Yeah, anywhere that's normally like populated, that would be abandoned. Well, just be empty. Is pretty much you get that feel from it. I don't know, like a town centre or something. Even if it's like just like a park, just something that'd be completely empty. That's normally like buzzing.
Yeah,
then you get that like
I think
feeling from it, I guess.
Because you're going to be doing interior space, it would make sense to focus on spaces like that. So let's say the college towards the end of the day, you're going to get some good corridor shots, or when it's quiet in session time.
Yep.
Multi-story car parks, like those kinds of spaces, you know what I mean? Like, so, the college also has kitchen areas like you could look at, or the gym area or whatever. So, those sorts of spaces where there's, like you say, where it's abandoned feeling or empty. I think it's important that you don't just, and it's also because you're into your photography, so it makes sense that you use those skills to capture it. So you can get the lighting and think about the kind of the composition of the shots, because what you're doing is essentially posing a series of like well composed shots. You know what I mean? You're steering, because it's such a linear experience that you're designing. You can think about the rule of thirds and how you frame the corridors, how you frame the shots, and build that into what you're doing as well as a process. So I think I'm happy. I think it sounds like a great example, but I think those are the things that I would suggest that you look at. I also like the idea, just made a note of it, but I like the idea of that you see it kind of when you talked about seeing it from a video camera perspective, or like having the 80s sort of tearing. Again, another film franchise to look at is like the Blair Witch Project, so it's more of a handheld feel.
Definitely.
Whether then you implement some sort of a slightly more shaky camera from the thing, or put a UI on the screen so that you've got like an overlay, so it looks like it's got the recording sign going on, or something. Do you know what I mean? So you could look at that.
Definitely.
And then a light source could be that it's in dimly lit spaces, the light is coming from the camera. So
cool.
those are all things that I think would be really nice. And I definitely think it sounds like you're along the right lines. I just think what you need to do is just tie down contextually through the location and through your research, through primary sources of things. So don't just go off like Googling liminal spaces. Try what they are now. Try and identify your own, and try and think about making that work as a kind of experience for a player they're going to buy into. I do think when you talk about the detachment of like the player just kind of going sort of like Crystal Maze style, going out of one zone into another that's completely different, wouldn't necessarily make that much sense. It would be better, I think, if it was put into, I don't know, like they say an apartment building or whatever.
That staircase idea, I really like that. Definitely. I'll probably go with that.
Okay, so look at those sources, look at building on your references, look at Little Nightmares, look at PT, look at Blair Witch, look at Shining, other kind of classic horror examples. Go out and get primary research, look at examples of spaces that fit the bill, and photograph them using that your skills, and get those evidenced. And then do those tests, do those early on, do those lighting tests, do the audio test, test different things out in different examples. Don't just build like what will be the final piece, do these little sample swatches. And then you can get that out to an audience to get feedback on those kind of things. And things like
a survey and stuff.
And I think things like the monster a good idea, but again, it's just down to whether or not you can get a working version of that going, and how difficult that goes, and if it's becomes a stumbling block and something you're spending a lot of time on, then you just can park that and come back to it if you get the time at the end as a luxury or whatever. I think that's nice that you've put that down as a kind of a bonus thing rather than an essential. Okay,
thank you.
Great. All right then, Tom, what we'll do now is stop the recording. This will come back to you, and then you can put it onto your site, put that reflection on immediately while it's fresh in your mind. Try and just jot down what we've said and what your action points are.
I'll go do that now.
And then carry on with that. Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.